Just keep watching. I already got my. And then I'll think this one. There's that.
I'm all right. You lost.
There was 12 blind, and then after about 4 or 5 days later, it was up to 100.
You know what, I think it's hard. I think. The baby.
She sent me more pictures, and I said, look, we really don't have anything.
Having a heart attack. Yes, and then that's the next morning. Yeah, at the breakfast table. No.
She's got pictures of her, now it's something. She can't sleep.
Really? And
We're just getting back.
Yeah, I got it done. That script just keeps growing. It's out of one of those real soft materials that just keeps growing.
But both of mine, that's not what coaches. Both of them are breakfast. No.
Not really. I just want to walk in, follow the light. Just walk right out. I'm not calling.
You're not calling?
Oh,
Oh. For what? Oh, you got her to half.
yeah,
You gotta go.
I gave her one of the nurses' hats for shirts. For painting.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, see what I was fixing my sewing machine with my own.
What did you do? Drop on you?
No,
Hello.
nothing.
Vacation
I
after
just very much like that.
Just not here. Well, you don't have to.
This whole area, yeah, you were hitting me out in the six and two one. And now we're going in, it's just very, a lid,
But time
a
off.
pipe falls on me, and everything, my skirt.
That's.
I asked the doctor, he said, well, nope, there's nothing.
I guess it doesn't hurt.
Oh, they go up and
Oh my God. What's your skin pieces in?
Yeah, I have
it's
to
very
have it.
thin, very thin skin. And if I bump, sometimes it just tears.
I'm
That's
looking at our local.
It's on my back.
good to know.
I haven't seen it, it's not, but could be.
I will get-
I was thinking fires.
I mean, we just,
She's moving to Youngstown.
This is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen.
I have
it. Scroll.
to.
I know a lot.
Big news, like, that drives on something like.
I have to imagine this.
Yeah, they don't.
This case is just thinking for. Yeah, they say they're frequently.
do you wear,
What's that?
do you wear the hat?
Yeah.
See, it's reversible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, at least for the grip and everything, like the thing now, like,
I was hoping. They don't have time.
I did.
Oh, that's the thing. Okay, let's get started here. Okay, this is a special legislative meeting of the Barberton City Council. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2020. It is 7:03 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Angela. Here. Mrs. Coburn.
Here,
Mrs. DeBevick. Here. Mrs. Fry.
Here.
Mr. Greer.
Present.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mr. Heidi.
Here.
Mr. James.
Here.
Clerk, please read the call.
Dear members of council, pursuant to rules of council, a special meeting has been called as follows. Monday, August 3rd, 2020, 7 p.m. at Active Adult Center regarding first reading of charter review legislation called by President Nedges, signed by Mrs. Lisa Polish-Miller.
Thank you. And citizens addressing council.
I have one item. It is from Dennis Little, 1096 South Azalea Boulevard. Mayor, Judge, and Barberton City Council members. As the chair of the Parks Commission, a local business owner, and lifelong resident of Barberton, I urge each of you to vote against Ordinance 77, 2020, the proposed charter amendment related to the Parks and Recreation Commission and its directors. The way the amendment is written places the future of our parks in danger. By having our directors serve at the pleasure of the mayor and future mayors, I believe that you would be allowing potential slow and gradual destruction of the wonderful parks we have worked so hard to build and maintain. The proposed change would make it much more difficult to attract and retain qualified and talented people to manage our parks. If they know they are faced with possible termination each time a new administration is voted into office. Ultimately, what purpose would the Parks Commission truly serve if the Parks Director served at the pleasure of the mayor? To rubber stamp and endorse what the mayor recommends for our parks? They would have no control of finances and no control over management of parks. Currently, our commission consists of 3 members appointed by the mayor, with confirmation by the majority of council, and 2 members appointed by the Barberton Board of Education, with the confirmation of a majority of council. As a result, the Barberton Parks Commission and the Barberton Board of Education have historically cooperated to benefit students and community members by providing developmental and recreational opportunities for the community. As with any change, we have to ask ourselves, how would this make things better? Can you honestly say this would improve our parks as we currently know them? Would it provide for a secure and long-term approach to providing quality programs and parks to our community? Not knowing who will occupy the mayor's position in the future and how they value recreation and parks programs allows for way too much authority over our community parks by someone we don't know. Thank you so much for your time and consideration on this issue.
Thank you. Third readings of ordinances and resolutions.
Ordinance number 75, 2020, presented by all of council, sponsored by Mr. Griffin, titled Proposed Charter Amendment, Department of Public Service. An ordinance to provide for an election on a proposed charter amendment to the city of Arlington regarding the elimination of the Division of Engineering and for giving notice thereof and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt ordinance number 75-2020.
And Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion to adopt ordinance number 75, 2020.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Griffin, second by Mr. Hyde, to adopt ordinance number 75, 2020. Are there any remarks? Mrs. DeBeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just want to begin with a special thanks to all of the dedicated members of the Charter Review Commission that graciously volunteered their time and talents to provide City Council with options for discussion. With regard to ordinance number 75, 2020, recommending the elimination of the Division of Engineering from the Service Division of the Barberton City Charter, I will respectfully be voted no this evening. While we have not employed an engineer for several years, primarily as a result of finances, I believe our founding fathers recognized the importance of this position as our city's infrastructure continues to age. I'm not a proponent of removing this position from the charter because I believe an engineer is a necessary and important asset to our city moving forward. As it stands now, the city of Barberton spends an enormous amount of money on outside engineering services, further adding to my belief that this role is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mrs. Coburn,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Jaber,
No.
Mrs. Angela,
Yes.
Mrs. Devitt,
No.
Mr. Greer,
Yes.
Mr. Heide,
No.
Mrs. Frye.
Yes.
5-3.
5-3. President Hedges,
Yes.
motion passes. Ordinance number 76, 2020, presented by all of council, sponsored by Mr. Griffin, titled Proposed Charter Amendment, Planning Commission, Planning Director. An ordinance to provide for an election on a proposed charter amendment to the city of Arlington regarding the appointment of the Director of Planning and for giving notice thereof and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt ordinance number 76-2020.
And Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion to adopt ordinance number 76, 2020.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Griffin, second by Mr. Hyde, to adopt ordinance number 76, 2020. Are there any remarks? Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission for their letters of non-support of the proposed charter changes in ordinances number 76 and 77, 2020. I served as chair on the Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee in 2016 and 2017, and again for this year, 2020. And I was chair on the City Properties, Parks, and Recreation Committee in 2018 and 2019. And I can tell you that the citizens who volunteer their time are exceptional and take their responsibilities very seriously. The Park Commission consists of 3 volunteer citizens from our community and 2 citizens that are appointed by the Board of Education, who all serve a 5-year term. As Mr. Little stated in his letter, this is to benefit our students, our children, such as after-school programs, summer park programs, and free lunches, amongst other programs that they provide. The Planning Commission consists of 5 volunteer citizens who serve a 4-year term. As Mr. Nguyen stated in his letter to council last week, the Planning Commission works for the long-term interests of the city. Can you imagine the confusion if every 4 years a mayor could appoint a new director and actually the entire staff? This could also deter qualified professionals to work in our town. All I've heard for the past couple of years is that our citizens should have a right to voice their opinions and to be heard. By voting yes on these 2 charter proposals, you basically are taking away the citizens' right to sit on these 2 commissions and to be able to voice their concerns and opinions that goes into selecting and working with the directors that they have chosen. Both of these commissions are meant to be a public process beyond party politics, and I believe any mayor should not be in total control of each department. This is the reason our government has a checks and balances procedure set in place to reduce mistakes, prevent improper behavior, or decrease the risk of centralization of power. For these reasons, I will be voting no on ordinances 76 and 77, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. DeBerry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also will be voting no on 76, 2020 this evening. I also, as Mrs. Angela mentioned, would like to thank the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission for reaching out to us and giving us some insight. The residents have already spoken regarding this change in 2005 when they voted no for this exact change. Looking at long-term success for the city of Arborton, I believe the planning director should not be appointed so they aren't worried about possibly losing their job as each administration changes. With the autonomy of the commission, I believe we will attract more qualified candidates that want to stay here in Arborton for the duration of their career, helping us to make it the best city it can be. And if we have this position appointed, I believe that as each administration changes, the planning director and the parks director could as well. And this does apply to, I'm going to use the same analogy because I'm not going to speak again to 77, 2020 regarding the parks director. I think that we have a good system in place that our founding fathers provided us, and I think that we should keep it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other remarks? Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also saw both of the letters from the Parks Commission and from the Planning Commission, and I do agree with what they are saying. However, we will all get to have a vote at the ballot if this makes it to the ballot. And whenever there is an opportunity for the citizenry to be able to vote on an issue, I believe that we should put it on the ballot and let them cast their vote, whichever way they would like to.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Gaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be voting yes for 76, 2020 today. I believe the mayor should have the right to pick who's in charge of the planning director. At the end of the day, he's the boss. I know for council that he's the boss, he's the coach. So he needs to decide who's on his team. And I think him choosing the planning director is one of the moves as being a team player. We gotta follow that rule that way. And, any business that will go down or have problems financially, who they gonna blame? Employees gonna blame the boss, the owner of the company. Same with basketball team, football team, soccer team, they're always gonna blame the coach. This way, then the mayor, everybody's always blaming the mayor for some reason. So this way, now we have an excuse to blame the mayor. We don't want that, but this way, if he picks the planning director out, it'll be on him. So this way, we're voting yes, and I think other members should support that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. President. On 76-2020, I will be voting yes. I do believe that the mayor should have the ability to appoint a planning director only for the reason that it shouldn't be a concern of I won't have a job in 4 years with another one, because if you're in city government, that could happen to any position. But the reason I believe that the mayor should have the ability is I believe any incoming mayor and administration should be able to put in place somebody that has the same vision to move the city forward and be able to communicate more effectively than with somebody that is hired by a commission. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm not certain that I'm allowed to speak again.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. It wasn't really a comment about it, it was just kind of a thought.
Okay,
I'll look at some.
okay. Anyone else? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Greer,
Yes.
Mrs. Frye,
Yes.
Mrs. Angela,
No.
Mr. Heidick,
Yes.
Mr. Jaber,
Yes.
Mrs. Devitt,
No.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
No.
5-3. Mr. Medgers, or President Medgers?
I vote no.
Bailey. Ordinance number 77-2020, presented by all of council, sponsored by Mr. Griffin, titled Proposed Charter Amendment, Parks and Recreation Commission Director. An ordinance to provide for an election on a proposed charter amendment to the city of Arlington regarding the appointment of the Director of Parks and Recreation and for giving notice thereof and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt ordinance number 77-2020.
Mr. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion to adopt ordinance number 77-2020.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Griffin and seconded by Mr. Heidi to adopt ordinance number 77-2020. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Jaber,
Yes.
Mrs. Devitt,
No.
Mrs. Frye,
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn,
No.
Mr. Heidick,
Yes.
Mr. Greer,
Yes.
Mrs. Angela,
No.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
5-3. President Medgers,
No.
fail. Ordinance number 78-2020, presented by all of council, sponsored by Mr. Griffin, titled Proposed Charter Amendment, Other Conditions of Wards. An ordinance to provide for an election on a proposed charter amendment to the city of Arlington regarding the elimination of several boards that are no longer relevant to the current operation of the city and for giving notice thereof and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt ordinance number 78-2020.
And Mr. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll second the motion to adopt ordinance number 78-2020.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Griffin, seconded by Mr. Heidi to adopt ordinance number 78-2020. Are there any remarks? Lisa?
This was my request to the Charter Review Commission to kind of clean up that area of the charter, and I just wanted you to be aware that that request came from me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mrs. Frye,
Yes.
Mr. Greer,
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn,
Yes.
Mrs. Devitt,
Yes.
Mrs. Angela,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Heidick,
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Motion passed. Ordinance number 79, 2020, presented by all council, sponsored by Mr. Griffin, titled Proposed Charter Amendment, Charter Review Commission. An ordinance to provide for an election on a proposed charter amendment to the city of Arlington regarding the appointment date of the Charter Review Commission and for giving notice thereof and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt ordinance number 79-2020.
And Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt ordinance number 79, 2020.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Griffin, second by Mr. Hyde, to adopt ordinance number 79, 2020. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Hyde?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedevic?
Yes.
Mr. Greer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. That's all we have for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Bebeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, and Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. It was moved by Mrs. Bebeck, second by Mr. Hyde, that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned at 7:20. Everybody have a nice summer break.
Oh, good. Now I can get it.